Hello, everybody, and welcome to this eMarketeer Academy webinar on how to get started with lead scoring, both in general, as we'll be looking at lead scoring as a concept, but also specifically, how do you do lead scoring in eMarketeer and how can you work with it in the application itself. So that's what we'll be get going on today. My name is Klaus, and I'm one of the speakers here at the eMarketeer Academy. I've been here for more than 10 years, been working with the product as a user, as a practitioner, as a marketer. So like you, I am doing marketing projects, working with campaigns, working in the tool, and just really want things to be easy and efficient for me. And lead scoring for the team here at eMarketeer has been a huge news that we are getting used to. Working with sales and marketing to bring the alignment better together, to bring everybody on the same page with regards to which leads, which prospective customers are most engaged in our content right now, and who should we be focusing on. So that is the inspiration that I hope that I'll be able to share with you guys during the webinar today. We're scheduled to be on the call for 45 to 60 minutes, depending on how many questions you have. Please do go ahead and send me your questions in the questions box in the webinar control panel. Other people won't be able to see your name and your questions, so don't be shy. Just shoot me questions or feedback or observations you may have. I will try to do as many answers during the webinar today. And if I don't get to answer you, I will get back to you via email directly. And as something new, already now, get your thinking caps on. If you have some suggestions for things that you would like us to go through on future webinars, shoot them to me in the questions box. I would really like to hear what you think would be worthwhile and interesting to hear about in future webinars. It could be really anything that springs to mind. So just let us know as we're planning the rest of the fall webinars in these weeks. So let me know what you think we should be looking at in the future. Other than that, just send me your feedback and questions there. I will be happy to do a little bit of dialogue instead of just me talking at you. So the objectives today are to understand really what lead scoring is, figure out what it does and how you should be using it, how you can decide what to score on, because lead scoring, yes, you assign scores and points to people. So what should you be basing those scores on? Then we'll look at, obviously, how you set up these scores in eMarketeer and how you work with them in the platform. And also, of course, how can you filter out leads based on scores so you can hand over to sales the people that are most interesting to reach out to at any given time. So that's what we'll be covering. So a lot of background information really as to what lead scoring is and how you work with it, and then looking at how you do it practically in eMarketeer. Before we get started, I have just a quick question for you. It's a yes or no question, so it'll be really, really quick. I'm just really curious about how many people are actually currently engaged in some lead scoring activities. So now you should be seeing a poll on your screen that says, are you already using lead scoring in your sales and marketing work? Yes or no? So you may be doing lead scoring in an Excel sheet or in your CRM or in your marketing platform. I just really want to know if this is something you're already engaged in, to get an idea of where we're at with the crowd here today. Okay, thank you very much. Don't be shy. People can't see what you're answering, so there are no right and wrong questions, even that it's only yes and no. All right, more than 90% of you guys have voted, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and show you the results. Share results. So you should be seeing the results on the screen. So as you can see, more than 60% of you guys are not doing any form of lead scoring yet, and 30 something percent are. So there is a good potential here for you guys that aren't familiar with lead scoring at all to understand what it is and how you can work with it. And hopefully for you guys, the third there that are already doing it, maybe you'll find some inspiration here. And if you're not yet doing lead scoring in eMarketeer, you'll obviously understand how you are doing that. So I hope it won't be too redundant for you guys. Thanks for that quick question there, or that quick answer. That really gave me some insights as to where you are in your lead scoring initiatives and journey. Okay, so first off, what is lead scoring and why are we talking about lead scoring? Lead scoring, in a nutshell, is the way that you can help identify which people are most interested in your content, and translating that into which people are most likely to buy from you. So if you had all the time in the world, obviously you could reach out to each and every individual that that shows an interest in you. I'm not sure that would be the smart thing to do, and we'll get back to that later. But we don't have unlimited time. We need to be focused on the people who are most likely to be relevant to talk to, because of where they are in their customer journey. So it helps us and our sales colleagues to focus on the most important opportunities and close more deals, win more sales. And also, equally important, weed out the people that we shouldn't be focusing on, either because they're not relevant to us or because it's simply too early to reach out to somebody and try to convince them to engage in any kind of dialogue or sales related talk with you guys. So helping you identify which people to focus on is what this is all about. So why should we be doing lead scoring? Well, first of all, it's a fantastic exercise to align the heads of the sales and the marketing, not the heads, not the managers, but the heads of the individuals in the sales and the marketing teams. Help us figure out whether we're focusing on the same thing. You know, what is a relevant lead to a marketer might be a different thing than what's a relevant lead to a sales person. So really to discuss what is important for salespeople to know about the leads that they're reaching out to, where they are in their customer journey, what kind of content they've touched, what kind of profiles they are. Getting together and discussing what's important for sales and for marketing helps you align the two teams so that you're sure that you're focusing on the same thing. Next thing, obviously I already mentioned that, it helps you focus on the most relevant leads. That's great for salespeople because they're not reaching out to people that are too cold or too early in the customer journey. You want to make sure that you focus on the people that you could engage in a relevant dialogue with. And that's not only great for salespeople, it's actually also good for the people that you are trying to impress and to get to buy your products or services. Because, and you know this yourself, if you're in the very early stages of your research, you don't want to be bothered by sales reps and account managers reaching out to you. You're figuring out which potential vendors should be in your short list when you want to start making decisions there. It's too early for you to be contacted. But later on in your research, it's appropriate that you reach out or that you are contacted by salespeople. So it's also good for the people that we're trying to influence, that we are hitting them at the right time, not too early in their process there. So I guess you could say, at least that goes for me, I don't like to be sold to, but when someone helps me buy, I enjoy that, right? And there's a big difference there. Being sold to is when somebody tries to stuff something down your throat that you're not yet ready for. But being helped to buy is when you know that you're in the market for this kind of solution or product, and someone is helping you make a good decision. And that's the sweet spot that you want to help your sales colleagues hit. Okay, so how do you score leads? Well, in a nutshell, it has to do with assigning a numerical value, points, to a person and figuring out what should be the data points that we want to assign scores to, right? There are different types of scoring you can do. There is something called explicit scoring, and explicit scoring has to do with how well a person matches specific criteria about where they live, what type of company they work in, what kind of job role they have, and so on. So these are really characteristics or persona traits that you would be looking at for a person or a company. These are the explicit scorings. And then there are the implicit scorings. And these are based on the behavior that these contacts, these persons have with your marketing material. So what are they opening? What are they clicking on? What are they reading on your website, and so on. So the explicit score, who are they? Where do they work? What are they interested in? And the implicit scoring, what is their behavior telling you about their interests? So altogether, the explicit scoring, it's based on their profile. Basically anything you would have on a profile card in eMarketeer, or you would have in fields in your CRM. That's explicit scoring. And the implicit scoring is all about behavior and what they're doing. And both are important when you want to qualify a lead, because it tells you whether they're a good match for your offering. Those are typically the explicit scoring, and whether they're interested in you. That's the implicit scoring. So let's have a look at some different examples. So explicit scoring, for instance, the profile of the people. That could be their job title, their role, their power and authority in the company, which industry they work in, the company size, and so on. Basically, things that help you identify, is this a good match? Do I have a lot of customers that look alike this person and this company? Because then there's a good chance that we could be selling to them. It could also be, and I mentioned this at the bottom here, just the fact that you have data could help you score. So if you have a first name, if you have an email address, if you have a phone number, these are actually valuable pieces of data because it helps the salespeople be able to easily reach out to them. And for instance, in the marketing side, it helps you personify your or personalize the communications you have to people, for instance, if you have their first name. So not only the specific data, like which role do they have, marketing manager, but also just the fact that you have data could be worthwhile to score on. Then we have the implicit scoring examples, like what do they visit on your website? What do they click on? What do they subscribe to? Are they looking at your webinars? Are they answering your forms, and so on? This is the behavior. This is the digital footprint that they're leaving behind all across your marketing channels, across email, forms, websites, mobile apps, and so on. And you want to pick that up and score the things that are most important for you guys. So again, you typically implicit scoring, their behavior, adds more points to a person's overall lead score than explicit scoring does. So because the implicit scoring, again, is their behavior, and they can do this time and time again, visit your website 1, 2, 3 times, visit different pages, and all of that over time aggregates up to a larger, typically a larger implicit scoring than your explicit scoring. So having all of this in our minds, what should we score on? What are important characteristics? What are important profile characteristics? And what are important behavioral traits to look for? It can be pretty daunting. And I've never said this was easy, and I'll get back to the importance of not setting and forgetting your scoring initiatives here. So a really good first step when you want to figure out what you should score on is actually looking at your customers, like your average customer or the last 20 sales we've made or something like that. Whatever data set makes sense and is possible for you to kind of grasp and analyze. So look at your existing customer portfolio and look at what are their company profiles, what are the demographics and company firmographics that you can identify there. Where are they based? What kind of industry are they in? What kind of job titles do they have? Can you find some common denominators that helps you figure out that it looks like this type of company or these type of people are more likely to buy from us than others? Obviously, then you should score on those traits so they will surface in your lead scoring. Then look at your customers' marketing engagement. The people that are buying from you or that have just made a decision to do so, what have they engaged in? Can you identify which pieces of content or which pages on your website typically leads to a warm lead, so to say, typically leads to a sales conversation? Because your blog posts probably aren't as relevant as your pricing page when it comes to determining which pages are most likely to identify that this person is ready for a sales dialogue. So look at the type of content and the type of projects that your customers have engaged in close to becoming customers. That will help you figuring out what kind of behavioral traits you should be scoring on. Hope that makes sense. Don't forget to ask me questions. It's so silent in the questions box. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions that we can go through during the webinar here. And then lastly, look at the sales conversions for the different actions and attributes. That means that some data points are closer to a sale than others. A contact us form, a demo request, a product sample request. Some of these are you'll probably be able to identify these as actions that happen in the end of the customer journey or the sales funnel there. They are closer to a sale and to a sales conversion, and hence you should definitely score on those, and you should assign a higher score on those things that are closest to closing a deal there. Because if your previous customers have done this, there's a good chance that any new leads that are coming in would have kind of the same pattern. So again, analyze your customers, figuring out what they are like, all of the explicit scores, and what have they done, all of the explicit scores. And it will help you identify what you should start building your scoring module on. All right, so for instance, it could look something like this. You've looked at your customers, and you've identified two personas, two characters that are typical to you and that you would identify as ideal customers. So for instance, we have one, we've named him Charlie in this case. We've got some explicit information here. He's got a manager role or a marketing manager. We've got a country. We know which industry he's in, and we know the company size that these people are typically in. So that will help us build profile score sets or score rules for this persona. And then we've got the engagement. What has he or she done? Subscribed to newsletters, participated in a number of webinars, and visited our website a number of times. So what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that he is interested in us. He wants to know about our company and about our offerings and about our thoughts and about our industry. He's engaged in our content in webinars, and he is a frequent website visitor. So all of this are good indicators that he should be getting a score that makes him pop up on the sales team's radar there. Likewise, another profile could be a Bella here. She has a title of owner. She lives in Sweden. She's in the travel industry, and this is her company size. And likewise, she has done some engagement with our marketing content that is relevant. Downloaded a white paper, so she's interested in what we're offering. She wants to know more. She's clicked in the welcome email in our flow, and she's asked for a product demo. Clearly something that's a good indicator of interest for sales dialogue. So looking at these things, you can start to map out your personas. They don't need to be as explicit as this, but they can be even more elaborate. We've seen customers that have actually assigned, photos of persons. They've put posters in their offices with their different personas, so they always have top of mind, who are we talking to out there? Whom should we make sure that our content caters to? And if you have different types of personas, make sure that you can version your content into matching these different personas' lifestyles and motivations so that you can speak to them in a relevant manner. So this exercise is not purely for lead scoring. It's great for your content planning as well, because you want to make sure that you have content for your different personas there if they're important for the purchase decision-making process. Okay, so what should scores be? First of all, you should make sure to assign different points to different rules. You can't just say everything gets 5 points, because that will not make your scoring smart enough. You should be able to set different scores to different rules. Different things are of different importance to you, and your score rules should reflect that. So that's important. It's also great to be able to combine different rules into one, so that you're just not, for instance, scoring on a link click and make all link clicks score, let's say, 5 points. Make sure you combine these rules with things that make it more smart, like a link click onto your website resulting in a visit to the pricing page on the website. That should get more points than just a link click. So being able to combine different rules into score sets makes you smart in your lead scoring and makes it more relevant to the people who are using the lead scores. Don't be afraid to use negative scores. And why would you want to do that? Remember, I said at the beginning that yes, it helps you identify which people to focus on, but also kind of remove focus or weed out people that aren't interesting for the salespeople. Let's say that you have a careers page on your website where future employees and applicants can go to check out new job openings. That's great to have a lot of traffic there for HR, but for salespeople, they don't want to talk to a new candidate. They want to focus on new customers and not new colleagues. So if someone visits your career page or applies for a job, you could add a negative score to that action so that they're weeded out from the lead score lists in eMarketeer because it's not relevant for sales. And then lastly, think about time frame and occurrence, meaning that things that happened 6 months ago might not be that interesting. So a visit to your pricing page today is pretty much much more interesting than a visit to the pricing page that happened 4 months ago, right? So you can set time frames and make sure that scores kind of disappear over time when things have happened a long time ago. So think about how time frames and occurrences, how many number of times should people have done something, how that can affect your elite scoring. Because if you just keep adding scores and scores and scores, people will end up with a high score, and you won't be able to see which are most relevant. You know, somebody that did a lot of stuff 6 months ago looks just as relevant as somebody who did all of the same stuff yesterday. And that shouldn't be the case. So you want to make sure to take that into consideration as well. And then also this fact that you can score just by having information. I mentioned this earlier. Just the fact that you have a title, it doesn't matter what title it is, just the fact that you have a title could add a little score because it builds a nicer profile on the person, and it helps salespeople make relevant and intelligent decisions about which leads to go after. So it doesn't have to be specific information, but just the fact that you have information could add some score. So let's have a look at building scores and how you could go about doing this. You can do this in Excel or on a whiteboard or a piece of paper in your meeting room, but do this on paper first. Start the process somewhere that's not necessarily in a piece of software, just to get the ideas going. So for instance, the profiles here, I want to say, okay, I want to look at job titles, industry, and company size, for instance, and then add some points to that. Okay, 8 for being a marketing manager, 5 for the correct industry, and 5 for the size there. And you can go ahead and add as many explicit score rules as you would like. Then move on to the behavior. What should score when they do things? For instance, if they request a demo, you know, that should give a score. If they sign up for a newsletter, maybe if they visit our pricing page or our blog, we can assign different scores to that. Obviously, requested a demo, that should add a lot of score because that's a really good sign of them wanting to get in contact with us and that they're at the end of their decision-making process there. At least we're in the short list of whom they're looking at, and so on. And then there are these combined scores. You know, an email open is not really a good thing to score on, but if you combine it with other things, so they opened the campaign email, they clicked the link, and they visited 5 pages on our website, then that should give a score. So combining different actions into a rule and scoring on that. So as you can see, this is not an exact science. There are no rights and wrongs here, but you just need to make this exercise and figure out what kind of content is most important to us. For instance, here, they visit our blog. Well, that's nice. We will give that 5 points, but it's not as nice as when they visit our pricing page or when they request a demo. So we want to make sure that we play around with the scores and come up with something that makes sense for us. This is not set in stone. You want to keep refining this, as I'll get back to in a little while. Now that we've decided on our scores that people can get, we also want to give some thought to when we should consider someone to be a qualified lead, right? Some will end up with numbers. Some will have 35, some will have 120, and we need to figure out when do we qualify them as, or when do we state that they're qualified? So at which score should a lead be considered qualified? In marketing, we call it a marketing qualified lead. Sales, they have sales accepted and sales qualified leads, and so on. So when should we make this lead visible or pop up or notify our sales teams about them? So we want to look at some ranges. For instance, we could say that from 0 to 50 points, it's a cold lead. Sales shouldn't worry about that. We still have some nurturing to do. They still need to learn more about us as a vendor, as a company, before it's really relevant to contact them. Then we're getting into the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're getting lukewarm to warm. They're being interested in us, and we might start focusing on them. And then everything over 80 is a super hot lead, and sales should be all over them. This is just an idea. If your lead scoring range goes from 0 to 10 or from 0 to 1,000, it depends on how granular you want to get, how big chunks you want there, and you can have more steps in between here, of course, and you decide for that. Just give some thought to when is a lead qualified. If you've made a qualified categories like this, and your lead scoring is set too low, then you will only have, you know, cold leads if you only have 2 points for this and 2 points for that. So make sure that the way you score and assign points matches with the ideal range of scoring categories that you want to have here. That leads me to some of the mistakes that we want to make sure to avoid. Well, I mentioned this before, lead scoring is not easy. It's not a set it and forget it exercise. You want to keep refining what you've done and go over your lead scoring model together with your sales teams again, and again, so that it is always a lively process. You create new content that you want to make sure to include in your lead scoring model. Maybe you find out that some content is not really good at converting, so you want to take that out of your lead scoring model, and so on. So make sure to design and refine it all the time. Don't forget to use negative scores to weed out people that aren't interesting to you. Don't award the same points to every rule. I've mentioned this before, but it's just crucial. It may be a bit overwhelming when you're designing your scoring model. So, okay, heck, let's just give 10 points to everything. But it's really a matter of figuring out which clicks are more important than others, which pages are more important than others. And don't be afraid to assign these points to people. You can always change if it doesn't make sense. And then lastly, the time frame. You know, a click last month is not as important as a click yesterday. So think about how time frame makes sense so that your leads cool off. Even though we want hot leads all the time, it's not realistic. So make sure that scores cool off over time when actions are not followed up with more actions from your leads. So summing up before we go into eMarketeer, look at your customers to figure out what to score on, both their behavior and their profiles. Think about which thresholds, which categories you want to have, how many points should someone have before you consider them a qualified lead. Set points, individual points for each score rules so that more important actions give more points than not so important actions. And then finally, put it into action and keep refining, keep revisiting your lead scoring model so it is always improving. Okay, so let us go into eMarketeer and look at lead scoring, what we have there already, what you can do, and how you work with the lead scoring in eMarketeer itself. Right, so let's move into the demo and move into eMarketeer. So if you're not familiar with eMarketeer, don't be too focused about where I click and stuff like that. This is just an inspiration for you that this is available. And if you're a keen eMarketeer user, let me know in the questions if I move too quickly over some stuff that you would like to see in more detail. You will already have seen lead scoring in eMarketeer, but it's because it's already popped up here and there, and I will explain why. So the lead scoring is found on the Contacts tab. In the left column over here, you will see lead scoring under the contact lists there. So when you go into lead scoring here, you will see the lead scoring score sets that we have, and you will be able to create new score sets for you to use. As mentioned, you will already have seen lead scoring because you've seen the score across eMarketeer in the contact list, and that's because we've included 2 default score sets, so you will have something that's working out of the box without you needing to do anything. Now, obviously, we don't know about your optimal customer. We don't know about your customer journey and which content are more important than others. So this is not very fine-grained and detailed, but this is just to get the flow going of thinking about lead scoring. So we have 2 default score sets that are already active in your account. One is on engagement scores and one is on persona scores like profiles. So if we look at these just real quick, go into these and see what they contain, it gives you an idea of what you'll be able to do. So opening up a score set shows me the different score rules that we have in the score set. To the left, you have a description. In the middle, you can see whether this adds or remove points from the contacts, and you can see the points that we are adding or removing. So as you can see, we've added some engagement score sets when people click a link in an SMS or in an email or in a landing page, if they submit a form, if they visit a landing page, or if they visit your website. And we add scores accordingly: 5, 5, 5 for clicks, 15 for form submits, and 10 points for website visits. This is just us spitballing about what could be a good idea for you. You can go ahead and change all of this, obviously. Now, if we just open up an example here by clicking edit, we can look at how these default rules are set. So this was the form submit. The rule name is called submitted any form. We can say that any form, if you've built filters in eMarketeer, you'll be familiar with this approach here. So what you can choose in the field here is any engagement in eMarketeer, like emails, forms, websites, landing pages, and so on. Well, how are they engaged? You can look at contact fields, everything you have on the contact card, and then you can look at whether people belong to different lists. In this case, it's obviously engagement and form. And I can say engagement, form. I can choose a form, a specific form in my eMarketeer account, or I can just choose any form. And I can say that it should have been submitted at least once in the last 3 months or in the last 30 days. So here's the occurrence and the time frame I set. So I'm telling eMarketeer if somebody fills out any form at least once in the last 3 months, for instance, they should get points. And the points are set on this screen here. So that's how you build the score rules. You can go into the default score set, you can edit and delete them. You can also copy an entire score set and then modify it. So then you can always go back to our default setting if you would like to. So this is the engagement score sets, scoring on stuff that your contacts have done. Let's just go back to the overview. We can also look at the persona score sets. Look at those, and here are the persona score sets. Again, these are the profile, the explicit score rules. We can score on the fact that the company name is set on the contact card, that we have a country, that we know the first name, that we know their title, their last name, and that we have their mobile phone number. And we assign 2 points for each piece of information we have here. So just the fact that data exists in the company card name gives them 2 points. So those are the default explicit scores that we've added to your eMarketeer account. And that's why you're seeing scores next to your persons, because some of them will get the scores based on their persona, and some will get scores based on their engagement. As mentioned, you can do a copy, you can duplicate a score set here. So you can copy one of our default sets and start modifying it if you want to. And then you can always go in and inactivate the score set that we created and then activate the score set that you've edited to suit your lead scoring plans. So pretty straightforward to get rolling. Now let's build a new score set and look at how you go ahead and do that with the different fields available. So I'm going to go and click Add Score Set and give it a description. Lead scores created during webinar, and I can add a description. These are just for demoing. All right. So let's go ahead and add some rules to this score set. So I'm going to click Add New Rule over here, and I get to give it a rule name. And now I want to get focused on what do I want to lead score on. Okay, we do a lot of webinars, so we obviously lead score on people participating in our webinars. So I want to do a rule that's called registered for webinar. That's the name of my rule. And then I look at what I want to score on. Engagement, form, yeah, that should be it, because when people when people register for a webinar, they do so in one of our forms. Then I have all of the forms I have in my eMarketeer account, and I can search for the word webinar, and I can see that I have a form called webinar sign up. I'm going to choose that. I would like them to have submitted this at least once in the last 3 months. There we go. That's my rule. Now I'm telling eMarketeer, when someone submits the webinar form at least 3 months back, I want to assign points, and I want to assign 30 points for that. Okay, so that's my first rule. It's an engagement rule because it has to do with their behavior, and I'm adding 30 points based on that activity. Sorry about that. Right, so let's add another rule, and want to add a rule on profile, because let's say we're doing a focus right now on the Swedish market, right? So I want to look at Swedish leads, and I want to score those. So I'm looking at the contact card fields, and here you have all of the fields that you've added on the contact card, not only the default fields, but also all of your user-defined or custom fields, they're also there. So I am going for country equals Sweden. There we go. Just a sec on this menu here. As you can see, I can say equals, not equals, begins with, ends with. That kind of makes sense. But then you have these two as well, is set and isn't set. And that's where you can define whether you want to score on just the bare fact that you have data in a specific field. So let's say that I don't care whether it's Sweden, just the fact that we know the country should give a score. Then I can choose is set, and then I'll be able to score on contacts where they have something in the country field. I don't care what it is, just the fact that we know the country. In this case, I want to look at countries that match Sweden, and I want to assign 20 points to that. Okay. So as you can see, I am adding score rules to my score set and slowly but surely building up my lead scoring model here. I also want to do a negative one just because we've talked about this before. So let's say we have a lot of students visiting our website, signing up for courses, and our human resource department are running some talent and acquisition campaigns. I don't want to weed those out. So I want to look at the contact field, maybe title or something like that equals student, or wherever I am identifying that this is the case. So I'm going to go with title student and say if the title is student, I want to remove, I want to be pretty harsh actually, I want to remove 70 points because it's not relevant for us to look at student profiles from a lead scoring perspective at least. Obviously, HR and talent acquisition, they're really interested in this, not sales. And then finally, I want to add one more rule just for the sake of the example, and that is website visits. I'm going to go for engagement, and as you can see, website down here. Now, if you have activated the eMarketeer website monitor, a web monitor, which means that you've grabbed a small piece of code from eMarketeer and put it onto your website, eMarketeer can track who's visiting your website. So if they receive an email from you, they click that email, they go onto their website, eMarketeer knows who they are and can tell you who's been on your website, which pages they look on, how long time were they there, and so on. This can be pretty interesting information in your lead scoring initiatives. Again, remember, a visit to your website could give 5 points just for the fact that they're visiting, or could give 50 points if they're visiting your pricing page. So I'm going to choose my website, my demo website here, and say just the fact that they visited. I can choose any page, right? So I just want to give them 5 points if they made it to my website, or I can look at a very specific page, and then I can choose some of the pages that have had traffic from my contacts here. And I'm going to choose the page about the Porsche car, in this case on my demo site. So I can be pretty specific. I can say visited Porsche. So when should this occur? At least once in the last 30 days, for instance. So this is a pretty granular rule if you think about it. Somebody have gone onto a website, visited this specific page in the last 30 days, and I want to assign scores to that. So apply the rule, add, let's say 30 points for that, because we're focusing on that right now. So this is just an example of how you can build your lead scoring rules and score sets, and work with the different criterias and work with the different scores to make those work for you. Then when you're done, don't forget to click save and activate your score set. Now then eMarketeer will look at all of the contacts in your database in eMarketeer and all of their behavior. What have they done? Opened, clicked, read, answered, all of that, and then score all of them based on the rules that you've set. So for instance, in the cases where I said in the last 3 months, it will go back 3 months back in time, look at what people have done and score accordingly. And within a couple of minutes to half an hour, you should see the scores populate in your eMarketeer account. So it might not happen right away, depends on how many score rules you set up, how many contacts you have in your database. But as soon as you activate the score set, eMarketeer will start chewing through all of your contacts and all of their behavior and score them accordingly. And that's why already you will see lead scoring different places in eMarketeer. Let's go back to the lead scoring. As you can see here, it's inactivated still. I can activate it if I want to. The scores can be seen in different places in eMarketeer. So for instance, on the contact lists, you can see scores. You can see the scores in the right-hand column here. You can also sort by clicking on the column heading. You can sort on the score, so you get the people with the highest score or the lowest score, obviously depending on how you sort there. That's one place you will see it. You will also see it on the contact card. So when you actually open up a contact, you will see their score over here. And you have this one, which is pretty interesting, which is the score summary, where you can see how their score has developed over time, right? So is this somebody who is heating up or cooling off? You can see which scores, score sets and score rules have triggered and how many scores they have awarded this person. So for instance, right now, I have a lead score of 170, and that is the aggregate of all of these scores that are active. 70 points for being an eMarketeer, 30, 30, 30, so on. That all sums up to 170. And obviously, if I had set some of these score rules to be looking at time frame, at some point the lead score would start to decline as well. When my website visit or my form submit happened a long time ago, the score will cool down. And then once he or she engages again, the score will go up. So nice way to look at whether this is somebody who is cooling down or heating up. You will also see scores in other places in eMarketeer. For instance, if you're in a campaign, let's just go to my last demo send out here, go to the email report. When you look at persons, so I want to see everybody that received this email or opened it, you can see the persons here and you can see their lead score as well. So you have at a glance whether this is a really engaged or on target person or somebody who's not that high in lead score yet. Okay, so this is where you will meet lead score in the different views here, the contact card, the contact lists throughout eMarketeer, where you can identify the contacts. Now, the cool thing about being able to score is obviously being able to focus on the right people at the right time, and filters really help you do that in an efficient way. Filters, if you haven't tried building filters in eMarketeer, is a way to look at a focused selection of people that meet different criteria, like profile criteria or engagement criteria, and lead score as well. So let's say I want to look at people with a score of greater than 100, for instance. Apply filter. Then eMarketeer will focus on that specific list of people and only show me the people with a list of with a score of over what I just said. That means that you can start building pretty smart filters. Let's go back to this one and say I want to see a score that is greater than 40 and a score that's less than 100. Then I'm seeing people with a score over 40, but under 100, and that will give me those scores. Maybe you can see where I'm getting at. I'm getting at creating lists or filters that will look at my cold, warm, and hot leads. And as you can see over here, I've already created those filters. So just let's just have a look at those. So the cold leads, when I click that filter, the criteria is score less than 50. Okay, pretty straightforward. Then the hot leads, open up that filter. Let's have a look at what that says. It says, sorry, the warm leads. I want to start with that one. The warm leads, they have a score from 50 to 80. And then hot leads, as I just showed, have a score that's over 80. So that's a quick way to do these filters that makes me focus on just the persons that I want to focus on. Here's a quick question from Marianne. How do you add the favorite filters? Yeah, you can see my filters over here. They have a star and they're listed in my left-hand column. That's because when you create a filter, let me just load a filter. I'm going to go with this one, where they have Porsche checked on their contact card. You can see the cogwheel here next to my filter name, Marianne. I want to click that and you can say add to favorites. When you do that, the filter will appear in the column over here so that it's quick to retrieve for you. So you can put filters in here that are relevant for you These are individual to your user login, so you can have different filters than your colleagues, so that it makes sense to have some kind of bookmarked filters over there for you. And I think the cold, warm, and hot leads are great filters to have bookmarked over there. The star here on the filter list will also show you that they are bookmarked. Just let me remove that one again from favorites, and we're good to go. So that is how you create a filter and focus on the right people. Okay, so what can you do? You can filter out. You can look at the persons in the list here, but you can also do some pretty neat things. For instance, you can bulk action on a filter like this. So you can add hot leads to a specific list, or you can remove them from a specific list, so you can organize them. Let's say right now I want to take all of my hot leads and do a specific campaign to them. I can add them to a list and send them a campaign focusing on them. I can also address a filter, so I can, from my campaign, address a filter, and it will send my campaign to all of the people that matches a specific filter there. I can also export my contacts. So let's say I want to export them to a file, to do a mailing maybe, or I can send them straight to my CRM, in this case SuperOffice, and put them into a selection or project in SuperOffice and tell my colleagues. Now, these are the ones that are really hot right now in the CRM. So those are some of the things that you can do with the bulk actions and export contacts options there. Okay. So let's see if there are any questions. Let's see, here's a question from Peter. Can you make a score based on a certain segment of your website, such as abc.com/food? I think I already answered that question, Peter, but as mentioned, you can look at any website visit, and you can look at visits to specific pages. That's what I did when I set out that Porsche website visit rule. So I may have already gone ahead and answered that question for you. So yes, absolutely. All of the pages that you track using the web monitor in eMarketeer, you can look at the individual pages and score on specific page visits. We use that extensively. You know, again, a blog page visit, that's nice, but a pricing page visit or a request demo page visit, much more interesting for salespeople to know about. So I hope that that answered that question, Peter. Keep questions coming if you have them, guys. All right, so summing up, you can score on engagement across all components in eMarketeer, including a website and specific pages. You can take into consideration occurrence, how many times did something happen, and time frame, how long time ago do I care about this specific action. You can score on contact card fields and belonging to contact lists. These are the things that we score on. You can filter on scores, like I showed you, create hot, warm, and cold filter lists. You can lead score on the fact that people belong to specific lists in eMarketeer, and these are the things that are currently available. Scores are already set up for you per default, but we encourage you to go ahead and look at how you can modify these scores to make sense for you. Be very specific to the types of content that you want to have score more points than others. And again, this is just version 1, so this is just the beginning. We'll be adding more features to lead scoring for sure. We'll be looking at how automations and lead scoring can play together and stuff like that. So that is in the pipeline. But for now, this is a pretty solid group of features that will help you really get started with a very granular and specific lead scoring model. And again, lead scoring is not easy. So you have some resources that are available to you on the site. These are great references to go on. So really take a look at those. Also, our consultants and support team, and indeed your eMarketeer reseller and partner, will have a lot of information and be able to help you out setting up scores and filtering and so on. So don't be afraid to just reach out to us to get some help on this. We also have tons of on-demand webinars on our site on eMarketeer.com/webinars, 25 plus webinars focusing on general marketing topics like SEO or email marketing trends, down to very specific product trainings on automations and so on. So if you're interested in more inspiration, go ahead and check that out. Keep questions coming. There are a couple that have just popped up here. Just type the questions into the questions box and I'll be happy to go over. Here's a question from Thomas. Is it possible to combine Lead Explorer scoring? Not at this point, Thomas. Lead Explorer scoring is kind of set in stone by us. It's not as modular, not as customizable as the eMarketeer scoring is. So currently these two don't talk to one another, but it's in the works. So stay tuned for more on that. The website scoring in eMarketeer is based on the identified contacts that we know have been on these different pages, and is really on a person individual level there. So it's quite powerful. And there's another question from Peter. How do you automate actions based on score? Again, the automations and scores, they haven't met yet, so to speak. This is still early days. It's version 1 of lead scoring. We'll be able to score, set score rules, filter, export the score, the leads based on the score, and so on. And the future development of lead scoring will be having automations both trigger on score and maybe also have automations that could add and remove scores from persons. So that's something that's coming, Peter. All right, so let me know if you have any more questions and shoot them my way. Don't forget about your ideas, what you want to hear in future webinars. I'm really curious about that as well. So hit me up in the questions box, or just send me an email or hit me up on LinkedIn or whatever, and let me know what you thought about the webinar. Thanks a lot for your time, guys. See you, and happy lead scoring.